For 48 hours. Take some planning.
All right, let's take a moment and silence and reflection, please. All righty, thank you very, very much. We'll officially call this regular monthly meeting of the town of Holden Beach to order. If you cannot hear, if you raise your hand, we will ask everyone to speak into the microphone better. So just raise your hand if you cannot hear. And welcome to all of you for being here this evening. And at this point in time, I would remind everyone, the rear of the room, that corner on the table is the paperwork referencing this meeting, the agenda, and the documents that support the topics of the meeting. So with that, we'll move to item number 3 on the agenda, which is Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, which is on my right. Let's all stand, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Number 4 on the agenda is consideration and approval of the agenda as presented. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion to approve as presented and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. The agenda as presented is approved. Number 5, the consideration of the minutes for December the 18th, special meeting, and the regular meeting of December the 18th. Is there a motion to approve A and B?
Motion to approve?
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. It's unanimously approved, all of those, both sets of those meeting minutes. Public comments, number 6 on the agenda. Public comments at this time are limited to the items on the agenda. So anything that's on the agenda, anyone want to speak to those items? If you want to speak, if you raise your hand, we'll recognize you. Nobody signed up? All right, we're moving on. Number 7.
That's
Mr. Freer?
That's me, yep.
Yep.
So, again, thank you very much for the Inlet and Beach Protection Board for their work and their report. And I've got on page 23 and 24, I don't have any questions. I just want to make a point, though. We're looking at a comprehensive long-term plan, and I'm of the opinion that we need to also have a short-term plan as well to understand how we're going to react to the FEMA reimbursement money, and we can get into that later on, or next month as well. So thanks for that, board.
Number 8, Detective Dixon.
Good evening. Very pleased to say that the police report this month is good. We had very low numbers as far as reports. I think there was 2 incident reports that were taken there. One of those was construction materials off of a job site, and the other one was some yard decorations in someone's yard. So we've been very blessed this winter, and officers are out there doing a good job. We're very happy for what they're doing, and so if you have any questions, I will be glad to try to answer them for you.
I'll make a comment.
Yes, sir.
You've been blessed, however, your prevention techniques may be working.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Our
Bad
officers
guys
are-
don't want to come here if they know they're going to get caught.
That's right.
So you
Our
must be doing a
officers
good
are-
job.
They're being very diligent, and we're thankful for that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir, and your staff. Mr. Clemens? Mr. Clemens is our Public Works Director.
Good evening. Updates on vacuum pump station number 4 construction. Happy to say that the contractor's continuing to make steady progress. Since our last meeting, they've actually got the siding on the building, and I know it sounds like we're working backwards. We've got a building built, and we finally got metal on the roof at the last minute there, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do when you have to work as you get the supplies. We actually finished up all the insulation inside the building. Sheet rock's been hung, but it's not finished yet. There's a lot of loose ends had to tie up as far as electrical work. They've done that, and the folks from Airvac flew in from Indiana, and they were actually on site today. I spent most of the day with them. They're going over a lot of the components and doing some testing to make sure everything goes well when we try to do our switch over. And at 4 o'clock this evening, the last word was probably be sometime Thursday when we actually try to do the switch over. Other than that, that's really about all I got, and hopefully next month I can be up here and tell you that everything went smooth sailing and we made it. But we'll get through it, whatever it is. If we have a glitch, we have it. We're too far along now to stop. If you guys got any questions I can answer, I'll do my best to answer them.
Any questions, Commissioners?
I do have a quick question, though. So switch over, is any impact, or does anybody have to, West, on your side?
Do we have to not go for an hour?
Well, I'm hopeful that nobody has to hold it, not flush it.
You gotta push, you got a fallback plan as well, obviously.
Well, fallback plan is it's got to work.
Yeah, so
And it's
does
gonna
it,
work one way or the other. I mean, we're at a point where, we're doing something that's never been done before, man. We've got a plan the way we're proceeding, because we're actually gonna do some test running before we actually try to throw the switch, but, they may be a few glitches, but I'm hoping not. Whatever happens, we'll just have to figure out a way of dealing with it. The good thing is it couldn't be no better time of the year, and it flows down. It's not like it's July the 4th weekend or anything, and I'm hoping it'll go well.
so you see no impact to the residents?
That's what I'm hoping for.
Okay, thanks.
Any more questions? Thank you, sir. We're on number 10. Is there a possibility that someone would make a motion? We have 4 candidates for,
Yeah, we gotta do the
Chair first.
chairperson first.
They pick a chair first. The chair is a one-year assignment also.
Look at page 26.
all right?
So I'll make a motion to select the current chair and Commissioner Fletcher to continue in that capacity as the chair of the audit committee.
I'll second that.
Motion is second, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Now we'll see if we can get the appointments. We have 4 seats available. We have
And 4 people?
We have
4 people. Is there a motion that by acclamation that we appoint these 4 candidates?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Everybody understand the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Congratulations for the high-paying job. All 4 of you have joined the many people across the country working for nothing.
I might make an observation. We now have an audit committee in this town that is one of the most highly trained, qualified audit committees in the country.
Looks it.
We have 1/3 of the top 500 companies, public companies in America, don't have an accountant on their audits, on their audit committee. They have to by law. They can't find one. We have 4 CPAs, and we have a treasury expert on the audit committee. This board is blessed, and hopefully we will use that audit committee to our best advantage for the town and for the audit committee and for the taxpayers of the town. So welcome to the audit committee, guys.
Number 12, Mr. Evans.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
State plays at 8 o'clock.
Optimist.
Good luck with that.
Well, I'm gonna make it, this is gonna be brief. As everyone's aware, we were going through some fees a couple months back, and that was triggered by a Sessions Law, North Carolina Sessions Law 2018-34, which was triggered by a case that went to the North Carolina Supreme Court, which basically ruled that towns could not collect impact fees. Fees had to be tied directly to something, and they had to have some sort of methodology by which they were being collected. With that said, we had a section in our ordinance book that referred to the collection of impact fees. It's actually in section 151. We redacted that section, the board has it, and this is basically a acknowledgement of the removal of that section so that we can comply with Session Law 2018-34. So that's what this is. And that entire section does not comply with the law. The law actually tells you exactly how you can do this, and there's none in that section that actually follows that new law. So it needs to be removed.
So we need a motion to do that?
Need a motion to remove it from,
Motion to remove the Town of Holden Beach Ordinance 19-01 as presented in the package.
Second?
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. It's unanimously passed. Good luck to getting there at 8 o'clock.
No,
All right, number 13. Ms. Myers, chairperson of the Planning and Zoning Board.
Okay, good evening. You have in your package a memo from the Planning and Zoning Board and a memo from the city staff regarding cargo elevators. You sent this to us from your July Board of Commissioners meeting. We had a little delay getting to it for, our staff was impacted by some visits from Florence and Michael, so that slowed us down. But after research and after discussion, we would like to recommend that no changes be made to the ordinance. Most cargo lifts are already permitted by the building inspector. They only go to Board of Adjustment if the home is already non-conforming or you want to put it in a setback. So then the Board of Adjustment looks at the hardship cases. So for the reasons that we have in our memo here, we don't think it's a good idea to change the ordinance.
Any questions?
Need a motion to do that?
No changes.
No changes,
Yep.
okay.
Thank you very much for your report.
Thanks.
Number 14, Ms. Ferguson, Assistant Town Manager.
I was buzzing through this one.
Good evening, everyone. The Parks and Rec Advisory Board and the staff has been anxiously working on events for the 50th anniversary, which is coming up on February the 14th. There will be events throughout the weekend, starting on Thursday and some on Saturday. But the Parks and Rec Board wanted to look at a proclamation that would commemorate the activities, and so that's what's before you for possible approval. And in the interest of time, I won't read it. I'll just skip to the end where the last paragraph says, "Now therefore, the Board of Commissioners of the Town of Holden Beach do hereby proclaim 2019 as a year of celebration of the Town of Holden Beach's 50th anniversary and urge all citizens to join in this celebration."
Need a motion for that?
Yes, sir.
I move that we accept this proclamation, approve this proclamation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no.
Thank you very much.
Unanimously passed. Thank you. Mr. Freer,
Yeah, so I'm introducing a budget schedule for 2019-2020 budget, and reviewed this with our town manager already and finance manager. Basically, under discussion, it's, the calendars are not specific. I think, David, you mentioned one of them is Saturday, which is not the case. So it's more of a, a timeframe we'd like this to happen, and the items that need to happen around this timeframe. So I would like to ask that the town manager work the dates that are appropriate, and work with the town clerk to schedule the Board of Commissioners accordingly.
is there any possible action on this?
How do you want us, how should we handle the calendar, Ms. Town Clerk?
If it's my understanding, this is a spitball
Yep.
attempt, and what we would need to do is to get the commissioners' calendars to lay against these items, and to see how they fit, how best these topical workshops or items can be worked into the commissioners' availability.
And yours.
Yeah.
I mean, I would like to say, I think that shooting for the very beginning of April for a draft budget message, given all of the meetings that are gonna happen in March, maybe just a little bit, it might be better for mid-April to allow some time to digest it just pushes everything back a little bit, but we still have plenty of time doing that, because at the end of March, we get the 9-month results, which also we all look at to say, what are we doing this year? How does that maybe reflect on what we're estimating next year? So I'm just thinking that maybe a little bit more towards the middle of April for that draft, and then everything just pushes back a little bit. But again, still plenty of time
Yeah, you know what I'm trying to avoid.
Yeah.
A rush to,
at the end.
At the
But-
end.
But then last year, we did have that exceptional situation where we were waiting for the development fee calculations and some other
Right,
things that
right.
came late, so,
Yep.
yeah.
yeah, I'm okay, like I said, these are,
Spitball.
spitball dates, but just, I want to, put in general context these dates.
Okay.
I would like to, specifically address the item that reads as a draft budget message. I think over time, there's really been a misconception that the budget message is what gets adopted, and that's really, the budget message is really a draft ordinance. So as that, comes forward, I think that, doing a draft budget message, let's just do a budget message and recognize it as that's a proposed ordinance, and then you guys go to work on it. But it would
Yeah,
be,
so the purpose is to, get it before, we want to have some input and have some feedback on that budget message,
Right.
basically. So,
and I
understood.
think by working through the budget, the revenues and expenses in tandem, that will naturally flow for you as a group.
Yeah, and, you see it here, we can do the revenue and expenses separately, but we have to put it together.
You gotta put it
So
together.
whatever is
Yeah.
more efficient.
I would like to raise the issue. I know that when we had the revenue workshop that was focused on how can we come up with more revenues or new revenues, that was a focus, and wasn't so much the focus that the budget is. Somehow that sidetracked onto doing something akin for expenses, and I think we need to bring that back to center. I know Mr. Fletcher, and I hadn't talked to you about this, but John kind of got stuck with raising his hand when it came time to ask for volunteers on expenses, and I should have spoken up at that revenue workshop, what that exercise is, and I've been talking to John on expenses with sending files back and forth, but it's dawned on me that that's really in the manager's wheelhouse as far as expenses and making projections in terms of capital and also out-year things. So I would suggest to the board that we bring that back to center, and if there's a desire for the board to look at some type of 3-year projection, let's do it as part of the normal budget process. Otherwise, we're going to be trying to, I mean, it's just logical to bring that back.
I'm all right with that. I think we're,
I don't
good?
see anything wrong with that.
Anything else on this item?
no, sir.
It's number 16, follow-up and review of our contract. Mr. Butler?
Yeah, I just wanted everybody to have the revisions in front of them on page 38 through 44. The revised engagement for legal services, along with the scope of work that we discussed in the last meeting. And also the other part of that is that we had a discussion on the retainer fee. The retainer fee, as you can notice on the next page, 39, it is the $6,975 monthly fee. Okay?
Anything else on this agenda item?
No, sir.
No.
All right, number 17, Mr. Butler, engineering report.
This is the ATM engineering report on Holden Beach Hurricane Florence coastal damage assessment. I have to say, when I got this report and I started to read this report, this is really great stuff, really good stuff. And I encourage everybody and anybody to go through this document, and it's really self-explanatory. But it does mention about the losses and the damage, and so once again, in my opinion, this is a well-done document and provides a number of key facts that outlines our losses due to Hurricane Florence. And I've asked David just now to go over and talk about a little bit about some of the highlights in the report. And it's one thing to talk about the money, but it's another thing to understand the information a little bit more. And David?
The way the report renders out, on an annual basis, we do, I think it's 53 transect surveys that are about 1,000 feet long, and it allows us to, on an annual basis, monitor where our sand comes and goes. Whenever we have a storm event, we go out there just as soon as practical afterwards and replicate those surveys so that we can see the before and the after condition. And that allows us, that's what this report does, it allows us to calculate the losses from a storm event, and because we have an engineered beach according to FEMA with a design template and a renourishment program, we qualify for FEMA reimbursements through as a Category G Parks and Recreation Fund. So that's what this report does. It quantifies those losses due to Hurricane Florence, and once this report is reviewed by FEMA, there'll be a project worksheet done on it, and then hopefully an approved project will come back our way to be determined by the board on how we want to proceed with making fixes to the beach.
David, I have a question. This is only addressing Central Reach, right? Because that's our engineered beach.
The actual report goes from inlet to inlet,
Okay.
and because we skip every other transect, but it covers from inlet to inlet. the central reach is teased out of that and is the portion that will qualify as the engineered beach for
For the
FEMA
reimbursement.
reimbursements. That's right.
Okay. But we do monitor the entire beach?
Inlet to inlet.
Yeah, thank you.
I know, I probably have said this before, but what I've kind of looked for in the future and is really trying to divide the island up. We have an east end, and we know we have considerable erosion factors on the east end of the island. We also have a monitoring point there as well. What I'd like to do is show the east end of the island, the central reach portion of the island, and the west end of the island. Looking at data, we've got so much data, and you know, the data is only good if you document it and you look at it and you graph it and make something of it. And I'm going to recommend that we have a simplistic view of pre-storm, post-storm, because we know that we've gone through a number of storms. We even have an unknown storm that even took away a lot of our beach as well. So we can just kind of put that down on a piece of paper, graph it, look at it, see it, and everything. I encourage us to do that. And is that fair?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Anything else on this?
That's it.
Number 18, Ms. Pat?
Okay. As everyone knows, we will be instituting a rollback process come season. There will be a bid out for that soon. And since the waste bin corrals that were built at some properties were built with the idea that people would put their bins there, that Waste Industries would know to pick them up and dump them and put them back, and Waste Industries doesn't do that anymore. The corrals actually don't serve a purpose. Our ordinance now says that waste bins need to be under or alongside a house, so the corrals really will not be used in the future if they have been built forward of the house. I would like to see us communicate out, encouraging owners to take an appropriate opportunity in the next few months, particularly if they rent out their property, to remove the corrals so that there is no confusion about where trash bins should be. When rollback starts, rollback will be back to the house. It won't be an intermediate distance. That's what the contract for rollback is gonna state. And I'm concerned that if we leave corrals out at rental properties, renters may decide that that's where trash cans go, and that will be a violation against the ordinance. There are some corrals, at least 2 down in the west end that I know of, that actually have been built in the right-of-way, which has surprised me. And I would actually like us to encourage those people to remove them even more quickly, because they are basically right up against the road. So instead of trying to take some sort of legal action or define some program to have a mandated corral removal, I would simply like us to communicate out, encouraging people to take the opportunity this spring to remove their corrals.
So, okay, so we're not mandating that they.
I'd like to see where we can get by encouraging people to do it, rather than having to go through steps, mandating and setting something. We may have to do that, but perhaps we can get action by explaining why the corrals really are not necessary in future, and encouraging people to remove them so that they don't get misused.
One of the things that I became aware of this morning from 2 different people, one a flight surgeon, was that if you require the waste cans to be up against the house, there are now a number of cases of red ants, fire ants, that go up and go into the house from there. and I didn't realize that they could kill you, but the doctor told me this morning, a number of cases of kids have died, and the one next to me was a two-star general. They had a grandson that was in a bed, woke up screaming, and his bed was full. They had to come up the wall, under the window, and into his bed, and fill his bed with this thing. So I'm thinking my own house. If I want to put a corral or something with my trash cans 5 feet away from my house, I don't see that as being my job here to tell people they can't do that. If it's by the street and it's not going to be used, then, yeah, we don't need it out there, and we try to get them to move it back or get rid of it. But if a homeowner wants to build a protection around their house, but not against their house, as the thing says now, or they don't want it under the house, they want it a little bit away from the house, I don't see that we need to be able to tell people not to be able to do that. That's just my position on it.
I think that's what Pat is saying, not mandatory. I think that's what Pat is saying. It's not mandatory.
It's not mandatory, and we shouldn't make it
It's a
mandatory.
recommendation, and
Yeah.
Pat, I'm trying to look, the next few pages is the ordinance, and it says, return to the normal house side storage location. So it's not, which is
It's-
fine.
It's
'cause-
outside under, people
Yeah.
have, it's not keeping them in the front part of the driveway, it's not keeping them near the road. It's under, or what we say alongside, it's like back at try to get them back to the property line, to the house line as much as possible.
Yep.
And however people choose to do that, but that is what the rollback will be. Okay?
Yep.
People will designate where they're going to put their bins. The rollback will be, if it's like what happens at my house, when I don't do it before them, they basically push it up onto my concrete pad, and it just stays there till I put it away. And I expect that's what's going to happen, when we have rollback.
Yeah, I'm perfectly fine with encouraging people
I am
to.
too, yeah.
Before,
To do that.
if we find that there's still a lot of corrals that are close to the road and they're not taken down, we can then explore how to take steps so that they get removed. But at this point, David, could the town,
I was going to say, so what you're looking for is some type of public announcement or maybe recurring interface, social media kind of word getting out that would communicate or suggest that. And yes, we can do that. Do you have a draft of what you'd like to see?
I
mean,
can
that
write
that would make it real easy.
I can
mean,
write one.
yeah, or suggested
I can
something that you could share with the staff, and then
Yeah.
we'll make sure that it complies with what's in the ordinance and what we
Yeah.
think is
I
the.
can get you one in a couple days.
I think the board should also have an opportunity to look at that as well.
Well, then it's not gonna go out until near March. I'm just saying, normally
Yeah,
we would
I don't
just
have a
leave
problem
this
with
to the
that.
staff
Yeah.
to do, but if you want a chance to review it, we can bring it to the February meeting.
Okay.
That was the end of that topic.
Okay.
I think.
I'm good.
We're ready to move on. Number 19, Ms. Pat?
Yeah, I know that defining an enforcement policy, which is gonna be, as we've said all along, gonna be a combined education and enforcement policy. I would actually like to propose that two of the commissioners work with whichever staff the town manager designates that would work on enforcement, so that combined in the next few weeks, we can try to put together what we think is an appropriate education and enforcement policy to bring to the February meeting. And I think it'd be good to have two commissioners, because we can have, two different sets of eyes and thoughts. I'm happy to be one, but, I've gotten kind of close to this whole trash thing, and it doesn't hurt to have another set of commissioners' eyes and opinions.
I'd be happy to work on that. Unless somebody else has a desire.
Burning desire. I mean, David, would you be okay with that? If the two of us would work with staff to try to have something talked through and sort of sketched out for the February Board of Commissioners meeting?
The working level interface on what the expectation is probably the most critical piece of it, is what, we have an ordinance, and how do we get there? You know, I don't have a problem with the staff interfacing with the commissioners on a work session. I think that where my interest would come in is that I'm of the opinion that it's gonna cost you something to do that in terms of
Yes.
manpower. And so that would be, you know, when it gets to that point in terms of what it might cost, that, as the budget officer, that's where I would want to be in. So, I mean, I would gladly step back from that fray, and let the commissioners interface. And it's gonna be, I'm assuming he did go to the game, didn't he?
He did.
Okay.
He said he would.
It's gonna be Evans and Rhonda, and probably need to have some police officer perspective on that, just from the public safety idea, so.
Okay. So if John and I pass our availability to Heather, would Heather organize it? Is that gonna work?
Yeah, that'll work, yeah.
Okay, thank you. This is good.
I just have a comment pertaining to this. I'm still not comfortable. Now, I wrote something down and I'm going to read it. You know, when I mentioned this in the December 18th special meeting, that I'm still concerned about the 80+% of homeowners that are part-time residents. We still continue to receive emails. We know that the Holden Beach Property Owners Association has received communication as well. And I think we really need to close the loop on this, or at least have a complete understanding before we start having civil fines out there to folks. And so, you know, it's easy for us to say that these owners would contract directly with a provider. But just as we develop the rollback process that includes a provider, we need to also identify a process that will help these homeowners that need rollout support with a process that will enable them to comply without the potential of being put in a position of receiving civil fines. And until we can resolve this issue and identify a process for these homeowners, I am recommending that we delay the penalty enforcement date of May 1st.
If I can add something to that, I've had more calls on this issue than any other issue in the last 3 years I've been a commissioner. As I walk away from it, it's a major change. It's a big thing, and we've got some great owners, but they're all over the world. I was in Luxembourg and owned property here. I had a group here that might be helping, might not be helping me. I would be very supportive of the board decided to say, we will not issue any penalty payments for the first year that we run this program. At the end of that first year, we find out we can make it work, we've got good systems, enough people have seen what's happened, they can figure it out, fine. But I don't see it in our best interest for anybody to be sending a bunch of fines out to people who have houses here that only come 3 or 4, 5, 6 times a year to their houses. They can't get it out within 24 hours or something like that. I think it's too stressful, and I don't think the people who pay our taxes deserve to get treated like that. So my proposal would be we wait a year of trying it and working out the deal before we would decide to issue any penalties, any fines. That's just my position.
So I would say, I think I asked this question last time, Joe. You had said that the people that live in Winding River,
Uh-huh.
that there are requirements for them to do that.
Right.
How do people enforce that?
Well, what happens is that everybody signs the covenants when they buy their property. Included in the covenants are a list of these requirements. Requirement is you can't put your garbage can out until that day before, the evening before. And it's your responsibility to take that and roll that can back out of sight, not to your property, but out of sight. So that's a whole different world, that we live in. There's 39 lots that are called Seaside on Holden Beach. And what happens is that we have a security group that comes through around 11 o'clock at night, checking the amenities out, not the houses, but the amenities. And they take a photograph of a garbage can. If it's out there, they'll take a photograph and they'll turn it into the property management group. Then in turn, a letter goes out to that homeowner. And they have to go to a hearing. If they don't show up for the hearing, they receive a fine. And if they don't pay the fine, then a lien is put against their house. I mean, I have a neighbor that there's a garbage can that's out, and my wife put his garbage can away today, just so that he doesn't get fined. But that's how we look out for one another.
So I guess my question is if it's okay to find people who live in Winding River and they have to adhere by the rules of that particular portion of the island, why would it be that much of why wouldn't we expect other people to be able to adhere to it as well?
Well, because, again, what I said in the beginning was that they sign a covenants agreement when they buy their property.
But that
The
doesn't make
folks
it,
here did not sign that.
no, I agree, but that
Yeah.
doesn't make it any easier or harder to actually adhere to the policy. It just says that they're going to agree to do it, right? I mean, it doesn't change the difficulty in adhering to it, whether they live there or they don't live there.
But
You
Mike,
still have
it
the same
does
problem.
change the fact that when I buy the house, right, I know the rules. We have people now that got 50-year houses here. This is a new rule. It's a whole new, very different thing. And I don't see it the same as when I signed the contract with the house and it says, okay, you're a homeowners association, you got to pay the dues and you got to follow these rules or else. That's fair enough. But I didn't do that when I bought my house or the house on the beach. And people here have been for 40, 50, 60 years. They didn't do that. And they've been living like this year after year after year. I don't see popping up in 1 month passing a law and the next month sending them a $50 fine. I just don't see that fair. But that's again, that's just me.
May I suggest that we have our meeting and talk this through and see what we come up with in terms of education and enforcement, and then discuss in February whether or not something should be done to delay?
So I put the next agenda on the next item on the agenda because what I see is we've addressed half of the problem, right? And we talked about this. We were going to, address the other half soon afterwards. So I think we need to address that other half, the roll out, sooner rather than later. So therefore, we're not, there's no way to penalize if we're performing it, the roll back, right? We resolved that issue. But the roll out is an issue that we haven't offered. I think it's 89% of our people that live here. Probably nobody in this room, we all live here probably. But that's why I'd like to address that to solve the entire issue as far as roll out and roll back. And I would support waiting until we have both offerings available before we implement the fines.
I also see this as a single package. You've got rollout, you've got to have it out at a certain time, you got to have it back, well, we're going to put it back for you, but we're in effect paying for it, but you're not, right now, we don't have a way to organize yet, we don't know how we're going to do that, so I would like to, probably, if we package together, the package is finished, then I think we could be more solid on where we go from here. But until then, I'd be pretty nervous about doing half the job and leaving the other half for people to get penalties on.
Are we discussing the rollout, or have we closed out?
We're still on 19.
We're still on 19?
Yeah, we can close it.
Okay, I think if we close out 19, agreeing that we're going to have a meeting with the staff to, John
Options.
and I will work with the staff to try to come up with something for February on what we envision as a possible education enforcement program. And then table any other discussion on changing the timing of the ordinance May date until February. Then we can progress on the agenda for the next to the next topic.
Good enough.
I'm okay with waiting. I just want us to remember all those silent voices that are out there that don't have the ability of being here. And it's a large percentage of our taxpayers, more than us that live here. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm okay for, because it's May 1, so we're not bumping into any deadline, but that's the way I feel. We should offer both sides of the solution before we implement any fines.
So we're through with number 19?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And number 20, are we going to address that?
Yeah, so let's quick, I mean, I started, and obviously I added this after I saw the minutes, which support, what we were talking about. Pat is quoted in saying, yeah, we need to address that at a later time. But then, when I saw we're going to talk about the penalties, to me, that's where it came, those were intertwined, that I feel it should not be separated. So, so I think we should wait for the penalties until we have an opportunity to offer a service. And you see, I see fee-based, so you don't have to accept this service if you don't need it, as it roll out. So we can work on the details of that sooner rather than later.
Well, I think one thing that's going to be important is to understand basically what % of our property owners want to have rollout. Rollout is a totally different thing, animal, than rollback, because it's not going to be everybody. So that whoever does it is going to have to know house by house. I'm sure there's going to be some sort of, you need to make evident where your cans are. If you have 8 cans, if you're one of these huge properties and only 2 of them are full, how do you designate which ones go out? I mean, there's just additional complications, but the first point is, what % of our property owners want to have rollout? Because without a sort of a scope of how many properties, I don't even know how you would try to find a provider, because they need to know the level of work. So what's a good way for us? Could the HBPOA help us with a quick mail out of how many of you, and you really want to have a rollout service at a fee provided to you?
I would question having a third-party survey to perform a town function.
I'm just trying to do something, and
yeah.
if you send it out, if you could send it out with the water bill, is another way of doing it, is send it out and ask for rapid feedback. If you prefer to do it that way, that's fine, but
Well,
we need to get a sort of a decent estimate.
Well, I believe that rollback is fairly defined.
Yes.
As far as what that is. I am not convinced that rollout has very much definition at all to it. There's a general feel for, yeah, I know how to roll my trash can down at my house, but there are a number of variables in there that have not been discussed and are anywhere near being able to put something forth succinctly that would rise to the level of being able to ask people what, in terms of a survey, that they want. And I know that's probably oversimplifying or overcomplicating something that's perceived as a fairly simple task to roll the trash can down, but there's a level of detail that's missing in that.
I agree.
Yeah, totally agree. We need to address it sooner rather than later and discuss those details.
I'm just gonna point out that somebody's gotta take the lead on this and
Okay.
really, really push it, because otherwise, we know how long it took us to get to where we are. And if we wanna get this lined up for this, to try to get this lined up so we implement it soon,
Okay.
it needs somebody to ride on it.
Okay, I'll take the lead on this. I'll arrange a special meeting for it then, just like we did with the rollback, so we can discuss it.
Just point out to the board that next month, that it was the board's direction to put rollback, out, the statement of work out for advertising, and that is intended, staff intends to bring that to the board for decision, or further refinement, as you may wish, at the February meeting.
So,
Yeah.
clarify that, you're gonna bring what you're requesting
The statement of
now?
work
Okay.
was made in January.
Yep.
It's out for advertisement. We're to receive bids and then come back and put in front of the board for decision February.
So,
at the
so it's
Feb-
already out?
Yes?
Absolutely, yes, sir. That was direction from the board.
Okay,
Good.
okay.
Could be a separate provider.
Are we ready to move to 21?
Yes, sir.
All right, Miss Pat, you're up again.
Okay. I have had a number of people talking to me about the number of free-ranging dogs on the beach, and the amount of, my family used to call it dog dirt, that is being left on the beach. But a lot of it has to do with off-season, and people are bringing their pets out off the leash, letting them do their thing wherever, not cleaning up. And of course, we had holiday weekends where there were a lot more visitors or owners here and things, and it exacerbated the situation because there were a lot more animals on the beach. So I'm bringing it back to the question of what can we try to do in off-season, even during season with the ranger, we're still having issues, but in off-season, when we have no enforcement people out, it is a more noticeable issue, the number of dogs that are off the leash and on the beach at different hours. I looked at the Brunswick Islands site, and they talk about pets on the Brunswick beaches to try to get an idea of what some of the other beaches are doing. And interestingly, a number of the beaches in off-season actually allow dogs to be out off the leash, some of them all day, some of them specific hours. I would like to have public input on this, as well as people who've been here a long time, their opinion, but for the animal lovers here whose dogs like to frolic on the beach and in the water, is there a possibility of giving them a limited number of hours a day in off-season, that they can be on the beach with their pets under their control, running around, not on a leash, and have certain hours in off-season where there aren't dogs on the beach, so that people who are walkers, who are uncomfortable with pets, with dogs around, have their time? Or is this going too far and just leave it how it is, even though you know that we have a significant percentage of people who are not following the ordinance? You know, again, some of the beaches seem to be, well, if you have your pet out before 9 in the morning, you can have them off the leash, as long as they're under your control. Some of them are after 3 o'clock, and this is off-season. You know, would this help, or would it not help at all? Are people uncomfortable with relaxing the leash law even a little bit to try to get maybe, more time where if they can gamble the way they want, the rest of the time they'll put them on the leash.
I go on the beach every day with two dogs. They're Westies, they're vicious Westies, but they're on a leash all the time. I don't have a problem with that. And I see an awful lot of people that enjoy the beaches with their big dogs. They're well-trained, they play in the water, they chase balls, and I'm seeing more and more people that are, when we're within 100 yards of them, they get them and they put them on a leash. But when nobody's close and there's no risk of anything, they're free to do that. An awful lot of people get enjoyment from that, and they come here, and I think if I was one of those, and there are a lot of people who have dogs and they bring their pets, especially the ones who own property here that don't rent them, they just come and live here. If you told them you can't take any dog out anymore without, I think we'd be damaging our marketability for the town.
So,
So we need some other options.
so, I don't have a dog. And I'm not a dog person, and I know quite a few people are not dog people. And a dog under their control is subjective as you know what.
Oh, yeah.
And how are you gonna codify your
Yeah,
example?
yeah.
I think that's impossible. I think instead of changing the ordinance to accommodate people that don't bother, adhering to the ordinance, I think my whole idea behind this was, okay, we have the rangers, we need to kind of manage them a little bit better, I would say. It was a pilot program. But we also, the reason we did the rangers, in my view, was to supplement the police officers who have, a lot more, there's tons more people here, more activity. So I would ask the police officers to patrol during, the winter off-season, more on the beach than maybe they're doing now. So I don't know. I have a question. Jeremy, do you have a program that you send the officers, or you go out on the beach every day?
We do not spend a lot of time on the beach this time of year, honestly. If we get a call out there, and that's how I would suggest doing it. If you see something, call us. We do not mind.
They're gone before you're there.
Right. That's why I would encourage you to
And I
patrol.
understand that, and I'll just say this, if they see, how far can you see a truck coming down the beach? You
Right.
see a truck coming a half a mile,
Right.
they'll be on a leash and back up in the house before we can even tell,
Right.
So
Yeah, but, yeah.
It's never gonna be a perfect world.
Right, right,
So,
Yeah, and I told them I'm not a dog person, but if they can control their dog and put it on a leash when I'm approaching, that's fine. It's almost, you're not there checking 37 miles per hour in a 35 either, so, it's give and take. But I would not relax. I'm absolutely not in favor of relaxing the ordinance. I'm in favor of getting the message out to follow the rules, because I think that's an infringement on a lot of people's freedom on the beach that don't want to encounter a dog that they do not know. And I would challenge anybody who says, of course, they always say, oh, my dog, is okay. Well, we know Mark back there, it's not always the case. The owner is the worst judge of that, I would argue, because they're familiar with the dog, and the dog treats them much differently than they do strangers, so.
Well, there was also the point made that, realizing that, we don't have rangers in the off-season and things, but we do have a number of holiday weekends during off-season. We won't have another big one until Easter. We don't have a big one until Easter, do we, that people don't come? But the question was whether or not in off-season, if we have holiday weekends where we do have more people on the island, could there be some additional patrolling of the beach during that time period? So, again, it would just be planning for holiday weekends to get more of a presence out there, because there are more people with more pets, more people, and just to watch it. Presence sometimes, the rangers, it's very effective. People know they're coming, and they tend to have them on the leash when they're thinking they're gonna be coming.
And I definitely understand that and want to try to help and accommodate, but just also remember, we've got one officer on shift at a time. So the more time, and not, you know, we can make pass and try to help, the more time we spend on the beach, is the less time on this side of the houses.
Well, your report says there's not a whole lot of activity, so.
And
But on holiday weekends, there is.
Right.
Yeah, the very time that we have more activity on the island, the holiday weekends, that's when you also have to step up. Is there any other alternative, David, to have patrols on holiday weekends? I mean, again, it's not that.
None that are
many.
free.
No, I'm not saying it's free. I know it's not free.
I would like to add one thing, and even though we've had a dog park in the near recent past, it has not alleviated this issue. To what degree has it mitigated it? I don't know, but it does give the person that's pointing out when the ranger, it gives the ranger a credible alternative when someone is on the beach with their dog to say, go to the dog park. Now, that said, the dog park's out of commission we thought it was going to be Memorial Day. It may be longer than that depending on how long it takes for the material to dry out. So that's going to be an issue. I don't know how long that's going to take. It just depends. So, and I know that sharing that fact didn't add anything to the equation, but.
No, I think we just got a commitment that the police are gonna try to patrol off-season on the beach.
We can definitely try to step up our efforts.
Okay.
Said, I mean, I can't tell you we'll be out there all the time. But
Yeah, no.
we will definitely make a conscientious effort to.
Random is better.
Yeah, right.
Actually, random is better.
Yeah, I kind of like that random idea. Maybe, I mean, let's face it, if I'm one of those people and I have a dog and I don't have a dog, but if I'm one of those folks and I see that truck coming, man, I'm going to put that leash on 1, 2, 3, and that. But maybe the idea is the beach access points. If the patrol car could just stop and the officers go, just show that the badge, show the person, because people are going to start to see that. And if you do it randomly throughout the beach access points, right, maybe it'll send a distinct message. That's an idea. Good idea, Pat.
Okay, so there will be no change in the ordinance, and we will try to have some random enforcement, or random bodies on the beach that will encourage following the ordinance. Okay.
Number 22, if we're ready to move on. Ms. Pat, you're still up?
Okay, we said at the December meeting that we would have a Board of Commissioners objectives-setting meeting in January, and it did get set for tomorrow. So since it was set for after this meeting, I thought if we would quickly go through an idea of how we could actually come prepared for the meeting. If everybody just comes with their list of objectives, we could actually agree categories at this meeting that we would propose to put objectives in. And then it's very straightforward that you put your objectives on a sticky note. You put it on in that particular category. We group all of the sticky notes. There will be duplications. Then we can put the list together. We can discuss them. And just like we did last year for budget objectives, we gave them point rankings. So if everybody's okay with doing this tomorrow, we can proceed with this process. And then,
I don't mind bringing my ideas, but sticky notes and stuff, I really don't have any of that stuff.
oh no,
Yeah.
I asked for sticky notes to be brought to the, we can get sticky notes brought to the meeting, and you just transfer your objectives to them. See, what this also brings is it allows people to put their objectives up, and it's anonymous. You don't know who particularly wrote what objective, and sometimes that's a good thing.
Yeah, I don't mind sharing my objectives.
I know, but not, sometimes it's,
I'm just that kind of person.
yeah, I know, but it's also, it's fast if we can come this way already prepared. And, I had suggested 4 categories, and I was thinking about a 5th one could be advocacy. That if we do policies, procedures, resolutions, ordinance-related, financial/budget, long-term plans, and advocacy. So if you have your objectives ready for the meeting tomorrow, and just come prepared to transfer them to sticky notes and then put them in the proper category, we can get through that meeting, I think, in the hour and a half that we have, so that the people who have 5:30 commitments can go.
Yeah, keep in mind, I need to leave at 5:15.
That's okay.
Yeah, I mean, this is what we did for our budget goals.
It's very similar, yes.
Okay. yeah.
Right.
So all we really need
Look at
then
it.
is somebody who is going to lead the meeting and do the tallying.
Would you do that,
You
ma'am?
volunteering?
Your hand is up, her hand is up.
I did it last year, I'll do it, okay. Then just add advocacy as the 5th category and try to group your thoughts that way.
Okay, good.
4 o'clock tomorrow.
Yep.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, you're up, 23.
We had a member from the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board resigned, so we need to interview for a vacancy, so I would suggest doing it before the next board meeting at 6:45. That's okay for.
Anybody object to that? All right. You're in agreement, Madam Clerk.
Thank you.
Town Manager's Report, Mr. Hewitt.
Yes, sir. Update on the internal control review. The program manager has communicated that they're about ready to issue the final, shooting for the 15th. Today's the 15th, and I hadn't seen it. So I'm assuming that it'll be coming. Our annual audit, as of last week, they were wrapping up the audit file and starting the financial report process. Indications that they should finish up the audit in a couple of weeks, after which they'll be in touch to review the draft. Basically, the hurricanes have knocked everybody out of whack, and the local government commission recognizes that everybody is out of sync. Speaking of hurricanes, we're still working 3 hurricanes in different phases, and looks like we'll be doing that for some time yet. We have completed or gotten the North Carolina Department of Crime Control and Public Safety to finalize the report to FEMA. That's about $335,000. For Matthew. For Florence, we've completed the additional surveys that FEMA requested. That engineering report is not finalized yet. We're on the cusp of that completion. There is no federal declaration for Michael yet. The governor has requested it. But then we are into the the federal government shutdown, so I don't know how that's going to impact any of those FEMA-related issues. We'll just have to see. Rollback service, as I stated earlier, that statement of work was advertised last week. The 31st of January is a mandatory pre-bid conference with bids due on the 12th, and intending to bring that decision package for the board as consideration at the regular February meeting. Not to be an alarmist, but I wanted to make sure that anybody with real estate interest on the beach are cognizant, or at least have it registered on their radar, that there are new proposed rules for inlet hazard areas. This was briefed to the Coastal Resources Commission meeting over at Brick Landing back in December. This is a 60,000-foot flyover summary on my part, and I'm not as detailed versed as I probably should be, but in my looking at the material, the potential for impacts at Holden Beach. It triples the acreage included in the inlet hazard areas, both ends cumulatively. It quintuples the numbers of parcels affected. And just to give you an idea, on the west end of Holden Beach, it extends the inlet hazard area 1.7 miles to the east, and on the east end, it comes back westward 0.4 of a mile. So the potential for impacts is there. Specifically, those proposed inlet hazard areas, they propose grandfathering, but they do address structure and lot size, uses, number of uses per structure, and specific calculated erosion rates and the methodology to do so. That proposal is a function of the Coastal Resources Commission Science Panel's report that will be finalized and presented to the Coastal Resources Commission at the February CRC meeting. There hasn't been any decision made on this, but y'all need to register it. It's on the table. You need to, if you've got a real estate interest, you need to get your ears up for what might be coming. Back in 2010, the proposed inlet hazard areas, there were so many questions with the proposal, it just went fallow. But now it has been relegated to the science panel, and they have come back with a vengeance and crafted these proposed new rules that may or may not go into effect. Along those same lines, I do want to point out that the Coastal Resources Commission, 6 of the 13 members of that commission terms expire the 30th of June, including 2 of our local reps. Commissioner Norris is the Brunswick County fellow from Brunswick County, former county commission chair, and also Rick Catlin from New Hanover County, his term expires also. On the canal dredging front,
David, should I ask you a question about, so currently, the inlet hazard area, where can we look up what that means to the area?
here's the maps. Yes, sir. Got it. These maps.
But what, I understand the geography is changing, but what currently is the impact of being in the inlet hazard?
That's about this wide and about that deep.
Right,
It's an overlay of regulations on top of that. I would defer to Mr. Evans to answer that question.
Does it have insurance implications?
I'm afraid of this in terms of market, in terms of insurance, both NFIP and just regular insurance. This concerns me, or I would not have brought it to your attention.
Yeah. You know, my question is, at this time, it's a, you know, like you're saying, it's a third the size, but that third currently is under that inlet hazard, you know, regulations or whatever, I don't know what you're calling it, but it'd be nice to know what they are that's being expanded a lot, you know. Okay.
Staff intends to be present at the February meeting, wherever that is going to be held. That location has not been determined yet. The agenda hasn't been published. I'm working off of the December agenda that was, done over at Brick Landing.
But
So
is there a link to it, you know, an overview or any information we get right
it's
now?
it's on the Coastal Resources Commission webpage under minutes and agenda.
Okay,
Okay,
great, thanks.
for the December meeting.
Okay, I'll look at that.
Canal dredging's moving right along. We are proceeding with no significant issues. There are some minor docks, bumps, and pylons that have had to be repositioned, but no mechanical breakdowns, and our levee's holding up fine.
Where's the dredge now?
In Holden Beach Harbor.
I'm not gonna ask you what canal it might be in.
They finished up the one between Lumberton and Fayetteville last Monday.
Thank you.
'Cause that's
I had a call this afternoon, I didn't know the answer, so.
And they were on Fayetteville as of yesterday morning, because I got a call about that, so they at least had gone back through there.
Okay.
Upcoming events, we've got several in the offing, namely this coming Saturday, Run HB, look for traffic issues related to, from 7 to 11. There's going to be 750-ish registered runners here, so expect traffic and bridge slowdowns because they're going over the bridge. There's going to be a lot of people here early in the morning on Saturday. So if you need to get to the grocery store, you might want to go,
Your note says 1,700.
what did I say?
750. It's 170.
I meant 1,700. Excuse me. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay.
The 50th anniversary is coming up. Time to celebrate, 2 o'clock on February the 14th. There'll be a here in this room, cake and ice cream social to initiate the creation of the 50th year anniversary time capsule. You got to pre-register. On the 16th, Saturday at 6 p.m., there's a presentation, a dinner social, a presentation of an oral town history. I understand we have a orator historian that's going to show up. Weather permitting, there'll be a beach bonfire. You also need to pre-register by 10 a.m. on February the 7th. Due to Heather's involvement with the North Carolina Association of Municipal Clerks, the academy, the Clerks Academy, is going to be held here for the second time in 3 years on the 5th of April. So we're hosting, acting as the host site for probably one of the most powerful groups of administrators in North Carolina, the North Carolina Municipal Clerks Association. So there's going to be a lot of brain power here on the 5th of April. They're going to be doing some of their annual training, required training. And then finally, Battle at the Beach Pickleball Tournament is, we're going to be hosting that on the 3rd through the 5th of May. And that's all I have.
Any questions, more questions, Mr. Hewitt?
Yes, sir.
I'll be brief in the mayor's comments. It really scares me whenever we talk about changing the inlet hazard areas. Everything that I heard, questions being asked, insurance, setbacks, rights to build, all these things I heard being mumbled. Yes, it impacts all of that. Some of the houses that are in place today, if they were to get burned, washed away or whatever, if they pass the way they have passed the rules and changes in recent years, those homes may possibly not be put back. Some of the vacant oceanfront and even second row and third row lots, the setbacks change and possibly not being built on. It just depends on what they pass. Not knowing what they're going to pass, I don't want to overly alarm you, the people, and me, myself, but I am scared to death because with a stroke of a pen, they can make your lot worth nothing. And I would encourage each and every one of you to talk to all of your friends that own property and everybody stay on top of this because there are organized groups that are pushing that these islands should be abandoned and let nature take its course. If you're in agreement with that, you just sit back and do nothing and just watch what's coming. If you would like to protect your property and be involved, pay attention, get involved, and let your voices be heard, whatever that means. So I don't want to come down on one side or the other. I'm just saying, if you have an interest in beach property, pay attention. And if you're a diehard environmentalist that does not want anybody else to build on the island, you should pay attention too, because it's going to come to a battle. I promise you. It's a scary, scary thing. Secondly, John, I agree with you. The trash can issue, Lord help me, how many emails and phone calls I have had in the last 45 days. One man got so irritated with me, said, "Aren't you the mayor? Don't you know what the H is going on down there?" I mean, what do you say to people like that? Another one was, well, a few years ago, the town made me build this thing. I had to put my trash can in out by the road. Now I've done that. Now you gonna make me tear it down, or you not gonna let me use it? I mean, the list just goes on and on and on, and it's an absolute no-win situation. You're gonna have 49% of the people mad, with a little luck, 51% happy. I don't know, but it's gonna grind on forever. You'll never get everybody happy. Oh, I'm trying to remember how many times, and I look around the room here, some faces have been here a long time. How many times have we been through this? How many times have we plowed this field? We're gonna wear the dirt out. It's the same thing over and over. Same arguments over and over. Different people, different time, same arguments. I have heard nothing uniquely different in the last 2 or 3 months. Same thing. But anyway, the wisdom that's at this front area of the room, I'm sure we'll be happy to see you resolve it and have 100% happy. Good luck to you. But
I didn't promise that.
well, anyway, I'm sure we'll work hard on it and come out with some good answers. The dog issue, I have had more complaints about the running wild dogs on the beach again this winter. One lady came to my office. Her little foo-foo got chased by a big dog on the beach a couple weeks ago, and that was over 30 minutes of my time listening to that one. So it's trash cans and dogs. Let's find something better to talk about. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, bring something happy.
Well, thanks, everybody, for coming tonight and putting through this. And I hope you appreciate that the challenges that the board faces, they're not all so simple. It's just not a flick your coin. And in no way can we do things that will please everybody. We have permanent residents, we have renters that rent their house, we have people who come here on their vacation houses, got a lot of people to please. A lot of them aren't here, can't represent themselves. And if you think it's hard here to get a worker to repair your house, took me 5 weeks of waiting for the guy to come fix my kitchen that fell in after the storm. And the last note I got from him was, you probably should find somebody else. I'm not going to do it after all. And so I fortunately picked somebody whom, he may be here. Is he right back there? Yeah. I called him and he showed up within an hour and they had it fixed within a week. But if I was away and I had something wrong with my house, I don't know what I'd do. Because finding somebody to do it, just to be, if you're here, is difficult. When you're away, it's really difficult. So just know that we're going to do the best we can. We work hard at it. I hope we please a lot of people, and we hope we do make the best decisions. That's all. That's all we can ask for.
Thanks, sir. Mike.
I'm just glad to see a number of people show up tonight, and again, preach to the choir. You should get more people to come so that they can get involved and give us their input so that we can make smarter and wiser decisions that are benefit to most people.
Ms. Pat?
I'm glad everybody came. Just one comment on trash. I think the one thing that we all agree on is we don't want to keep seeing more and more trash down by the road, not in bins, sitting stewing for days on end. We're going to do the best we can to find a solution for the most people possible. It is literally impossible that we'll get 100%, but hopefully we can get 90%, but we're not going to do anything that is going to unfairly burden anyone if we can help it.
Joe?
Happy New Year to you and your families, and thanks for coming out this evening. Appreciate it, and I look forward to future meetings.
Peter?
Molly's last. Yeah, thanks for everybody coming tonight and look forward to working with everybody to come to a positive resolution of the trash and the dogs.
Okay, public comments, number 27 on the agenda. Anyone want to speak about anything you want to speak about? Be recognized, Ms. Amos. Come to the microphone, give us your name and address, and talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Hey, I'm Mel Amos. I've been here for 60 years. I've had my property for 60 years. My garbage can container corral has been in the same position for 60 years. It's been there forever. So, and it's just unburdened. You have to think about people having to hire somebody to even remove these things. You know, like you're saying you can't get somebody to do it. Hey, it's hard for everybody. And I think these things that are there should be grandfathered in, because it's going to be hard to move them, you know, and stuff. And it's harder, I think, for people to have to take them all the way back to the house instead of into the corral that's right there and has been there. I'm just saying it's going to be hard for everybody. They need to consider this. And like they're saying, so now you got these stinky things up by the house where people are renting on them and everything. And those people are not going to roll those things out. If they're up there by the road, they roll them out a lot easier because I rent the house too. So. And they will not take them from the house all the way out. So y'all need to pay attention to those things.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else have anything you want to talk about? Yes, sir, Captain.
I'm Lewis Mitchell, 132 Tarpon Drive. And Alan, I know we've been talking about dogs and trash cans for 40 years. So just a comment that I have on dogs and dogs on leashes. Peter, so I have a dog. Anyway, we walk the beach 3 or 4 times a week. So we are on the beach 3 or 4 times every week. Yes, frequently I do see dogs that are off leashes. Have we ever had a problem with a dog off a leash? No. We do have dogs that will come up to us, but I have not seen a dog owner that has not had a dog under control. So just comments would be, this time of year, I do not think that dogs off a leash is really a problem. Our dog is always on the leash. We do see dogs that are not on the leash, but any real problems I don't see. So that's just a comment from somebody that walks the beach 3 or 4 times every week. Thank you.
All right, anyone else want to speak about anything that's on your mind? Yes, ma'am, Miss Betty.
My name's Betty DeWeese. I live at 111 Deal Drive. I've been here a long time. I'd like to ask you, are these ordinances for just Ocean Boulevard, or are they for all over the beach? All the side streets and everything? So, what is, I can understand why you want the trash cans pulled back, and you don't want, you know, the beauty of the island to see people have trash. But what about the side streets? Why is it such a big deal? I have neighbors that come in and pull their trash cans out and go away, and they don't come back for, you know, maybe a month. So they're not close neighbors. I'll have real close neighbors pretty soon, but anyway. What is the big deal? I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm like Alan, we've done this thing over and over. We've talked about trash every which way. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, we do have, I mean, it's not just the aesthetics and the hygiene along Ocean Boulevard. We have visitors that are on pretty much any street on the island. You will have visitors at times, but whether you're on Ocean Boulevard or a side street, if there are cans and there's a storm, they're out there for days, and there's a storm, they're just as likely to get blown over and trash dispersed if you're on a side street as if you're on Ocean Boulevard. bicyclists bicycle everywhere. Last summer, there were quite a few days as I was biking along that there were long stretches where there were bins out for a couple days, and that's a long stretch of it just stinks. And I walk and I bike, and I have a lot of visitors. We have a lot of renters down in West End, and there were people commenting. There were renters commenting about, you know, this isn't nice, this smells, and we want people to be happy to come here. So they could be anywhere on the island. It makes sense to do it anywhere on the island, and that's one reason for island-wide rollback, is so that there's the level playing field of getting the cans back without people necessarily having to be here. The rollout, as we've said, we will try our best to find a solution here.
Well, the other thing I wanted to make you aware of is as far as animals are on the beach, the majority of the people that live over in Lockwood that have animals walk them on the beach. They don't get our notices. The people from the other side from off the island walk their animals. They park, there's a walkway that's open where I live on Gill Drive. They park up and down my street, bring their dogs, walk the beach. They aren't gonna get any of your notices that you put out, you know, any changes as far as the animals are concerned. So I'm telling you, it's not just the people, the permanent residents that live on the street that walking their dogs. It's people from all over the place. And I feel sorry for you because you're new, and I'm telling you, you ain't gonna win with this trash thing.
Anyone else have any wisdom to share? All right. We're on number 28, I believe. Is there a motion of any kind?
Can I state that? You want me to state it for you? Or?
Yes, ma'am.
Executive session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318-11A6 to consider the performance of an employee, and North Carolina General Statute 143-318-11A3 to consult with the town attorney.
Is there a motion?
I move we go into executive session.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We will be in executive session, I don't know how long, but we'll be back. Motion to come out of executive session.
So moved.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. We're back into regular session. All right. Madam Attorney, you got anything you want to say, or Commissioners?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to accept the resolution 1901, resolution of the Towns of Holden Beach authorizing filing of condemnation actions to require perpetual easements for the town Eastern Reach Shore Protection Project.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. It's unanimously passed. Madam Attorney, you got anything else?
No, sir, sorry, I forgot that. No, sir. I was coming for your signature. I was coming for your signature.
Is our motion adjourned?
Oh, so do we have a motion to make about, were we agreeing, to hire somebody?
Next
We
time.
did. Good, next week. So moved.
All right, the second to adjourn? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. It's unanimously agreed that we are adjourned.